Carbon buildup quietly damages more Toyota engines than most owners realize. It restricts airflow, hurts fuel economy, and turns minor issues into costly repairs. The fix is not complicated or expensive. There are proven ways to clean it out before real damage starts. If you have owned or worked on a Toyota with a direct injection engine long enough, you get a front row seat to one of the quirks that most drivers never fully understand until it bites them. The direct injection technology in these engines, whether it is the 2.5-liter in a Camry or RAV4, the 3.5-liter V6 in a Highlander or Tacoma, or the turbocharged 2-liter in newer models, comes with a big upside, better power, and fuel economy. But there is a trade-off that every seasoned mechanic will tell you about. The intake valves on these engines get caked with carbon over time because fuel never washes over them like in older port injection systems. Back in the day, fuel sprayed just behind the intake valves, and that constant rinse from gasoline and detergents kept carbon from building up. That is not the case on most modern Toyota direct injection motors. With these Toyota engines, the gasoline goes straight into the combustion chamber, and those valves just sit there collecting oil vapors and blow-by soot until it turns into hard, sticky buildup. That gunk does not just look gunky, it actually chokes off airflow and can prevent the valve from sealing properly. So your engine starts running rough, hesitates when you accelerate, and often misfires, especially on cold starts. Many owners do not connect the dots at first, and they chase spark plug or coil problems when the real culprit is carbon on the valves. A Toyota owner with a 2016 RAV4 had signs of a mystery misfire. She had already replaced the plugs and coils on her own, but the SUV was still rough at idle and hesitated during acceleration. After pulling the intake, we found the valve so gummed up it looked like someone had painted tar inside her engine. After Walnut blasting, the RAV4 ran smoothly again. This problem would have been prevented if she knew that direct injection does not clean your valves for you. The worst part is, if you ignore it long enough, that buildup can affect not only your engine, but also contribute to catalytic converter damage and fuel trim problems down the road because the engine is burning inefficiently. Now here is the good news. Once you understand the issue, you can tackle it before it turns into a real repair bill. The most effective way I found is walnut blasting. Let me tell you straight up, walnut blasting is the gold standard for cleaning carbon off Toyota direct injection intake valves. Over the years, every miracle chemical has come and gone, but nothing consistently removes baked-on carbon like crushed walnut shells blasted at the valves. The first time you take the intake manifold off a direct injection Toyota, for example a 2.5-liter or 3.5-liter V6, you will see intake valves that have literally never been washed by fuel the way older port injection engines used to be. All the oil vapors and gunk in the crankcase ventilation system just love to stick to those valves and bake into hard carbon over time. You can spray cleaners, pour seafoam down the throttle body all day long, but it never really reaches the problem. Walnut blasting works like a tiny mechanical pressure wash. You hook up a media blasting rig with finely crushed walnut shells, blast them into the intake ports with compressed air, and the shells literally abrade the carbon off without scratching the metal. They are softer than the aluminum valves and seats, but tough enough to knock carbon loose. Shops also vacuum everything right out as they blast it, so you are not just breaking carbon loose and letting it float around inside your engine to cause even more trouble. Many Toyota owners who realize the importance of cleaning out carbon from their direct injection engines benefit a lot from walnut blasting. The catch is, it is not a 5-minute job. To remove the intake manifold, clean the valves, and vacuum everything, you are talking a few hours. I always recommend asking a professional mechanic for help. But if you compare that to the cost of a rebuilt head or a new catalytic converter from prolonged misfires, you can see the difference. Hey there, it's Mike. I have been turning wrenches on Toyotas for over 15 years, and I have seen what carbon buildup really does, from rough idle and bad mileage to damaged catalytic converters that could have been avoided. The truth is, a little smart maintenance and a few cheap tools can save you thousands. Let me show you the secrets and tips you might not have even thought of. You might be tempted to manually clean your Toyota's intake valves without running a Walnut blaster, but manual cleaning is a slog. It is never as quick or as complete as a proper Walnut blast job. On direct injection motors in Toyota's lineup, carbon buildup does not just wipe off with a quick spray. You have to get in there physically and chip it away, because the fuel never washes over those valves like in old port-injected engines. Many owners compare it to cleaning burnt grease out of an old cast iron pan, except the pan is in the heart of your engine. You pull the intake off. Make sure the valve you are working on is completely closed so debris cannot fall into the cylinder. Then you start digging with picks, wire brushes, scrapers, and solvent to clear out all the buildup. I recommend using compressed air to blow out chunks as you work. After that, go back through with rags and finally vacuum out the mess. It works, but it takes time and patience. I recently ran into this on a 2018 Camry with the 2.5-liter engine, where carbon had gotten pretty heavy. A Walnut blast attachment was not available without a more extensive teardown, so I used scrapers and a solvent soak to dig in. It took a long time, but we got most of the buildup off, and that later smoothed out the idle. Here is the catch: if you miss a spot, that leftover carbon keeps accumulating and starts choking the airflow again. So, while manual cleaning is a legitimate do-it-yourself option and a cheap way to slow the buildup down, it is labor-intensive and easier to mess up than folks expect. But this is not the only method you should keep in mind. The next one might surprise you. You have probably seen those spray can valve cleaners and fuel additive induction services. I get why folks grab them, but with Toyota direct injection engines in general, here is what most people learn the hard way. Those chemical sprays are not a cure for carbon buildup on intake valves. This is a shop insight most Toyota owners do not know. The products might have their place, but most do not do what people expect in a direct injection motor like a 2.5-liter four-cylinder or a 3.5-liter V6. The cleaners have to actually reach the carbon to dissolve it. In a port-injected engine, fuel and detergents spray right over the valves, so cleaners piggyback on that flow. But in a direct injection Toyota, the fuel goes straight into the combustion chamber and never washes over the back of the valves. That is why carbon accumulates in the first place. Additives in the tank do not reach the valves at all because gasoline does not flow past them. Many Toyota owners spray cleaner into the throttle body and let the engine run while it sucks it in. That can clear very light, fresh deposits if you catch the problem early. It can also make a rough idling Toyota feel much better for a week or two. But once that goo gets baked hard on, as on some Camrys or RAV4s with 60,000 plus miles, these sprays barely touch it. Most of the carbon stays right where it is, and you end up chasing symptoms instead of fixing the problem. A lot of owners think they have cured a valve carbon issue with $15 worth of cleaner, and a few days later they have the same rough idle. One 2017 Highlander owner used cleaners 3 separate times, but did not see real smoothness until Walnut blasting. So, sure, chemical cleaners have a role in routine maintenance and prevention, but they are not a cure-all. Still, when using cleaners, there is one tip I always tell Toyota owners, and that is to understand what happens with newer dual injection systems. You need to know that some newer Toyotas actually have both direct injection and port injection, and that changes the carbon equation completely. Starting around 2018, Toyota introduced what they call D4S fuel injection on many engines. This system combines direct injection with traditional port injection. The port injectors spray fuel over the intake valves during certain conditions, which helps wash away carbon deposits naturally. It is Toyota's answer to the carbon buildup problem that plagued earlier direct injection engines. If you have a newer Camry, RAV4, or Tacoma with this dual system, you are in better shape than owners of older models. The port injection acts like a self-cleaning system for the valves. Carbon still forms, but at a much slower rate. You might not need a Walnut blast until 100,000 miles or more, compared to 40,000 to 60,000 miles on older direct injection only engines. One Toyota owner with a 2019 Camry came in worried about carbon after reading horror stories online. When we inspected the valves at 70,000 miles, they were surprisingly clean thanks to that dual injection system. But here is the thing. Even with D4S, carbon eventually builds up, especially if you do mostly short trips or city driving. The port injectors do not spray during all driving conditions. At highway speeds and high loads, the system often runs in direct injection mode only to maximize efficiency, so those valves still see periods when they are not getting washed. The takeaway is simple. If you have an older Toyota with direct injection only, carbon cleaning is inevitable and should be planned. If you have a newer model with dual injection, you have bought yourself more time, but you are not completely off the hook. Either way, the next prevention methods I am about to share will help extend the time between cleanings and keep your Toyota running smoothly. Most owners do not believe this one matters until they see what comes out of it. If you are serious about slowing carbon buildup in a Toyota direct injection engine, I always tell Toyota owners that adding a quality catch can make a real difference. But do not think it is going to magically remove the gunk that is already baked on. It is more like a preventative measure. The idea is simple. Every gasoline engine vents a little blow-by and oil vapor back into the intake through the PCV system. On older port-injected engines, gasoline would wash over the back of the valve and help keep them clean. Direct injection engines, with fuel shot straight into the combustion chamber, do not get that rinse, so oil vapors can mix with soot and cook onto the intake valves over time. A catch can sits in line and captures a lot of that oil vapor before it ever reaches the intake tract. I have seen this firsthand on Camrys, Tacomas, and 4Runners. One Toyota owner brought in his 3.5-liter V6 Tacoma with about 75,000 miles. The intake valves were already starting to cake because he drove a lot of short trips and never really got the engine hot enough to burn off those vapors. We installed a decent baffled catch can on the PCV line, and over the next few oil changes we drained off a surprising amount of oil and water mixture. This made the engine feel smoother, and he avoided a deeper cleanup at 100,000 miles because this slowed the deposit rate down. It is important to note that newer dual-injection Toyotas reduce the urgency of this modification significantly. Now, here is a shop trick. If your valves are already gummed up, a catch can will not magically blast that buildup. You will still need a proper intake cleaning or a Walnut blast to clean things up. But what a catch can will do is help keep future carbon from accumulating as fast, especially if you are not on the highway every day. This is a pretty helpful tip to prevent carbon buildup. And the next one works as well. Have you ever heard an old-timer say, "Give it a good run once in a while and it will thank you later"? On direct injection Toyotas, that is a tip you should not ignore. Toyota direct injection engines spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber, so the intake valves do not get the fuel wash that used to help keep them clean. That means carbon and oil vapors stick and bake on over time. One way to help slow that process down and sometimes burn off lighter deposits is regular highway driving at higher engine speeds, where the engine really gets hot and works hard. When you are just tooling around town at low speed and low revolutions per minute, the engine barely gets warm enough to make much heat in the intake or the exhaust. So any carbon buildup just sits there and accumulates. But when you hit the freeway, cruise at 60 to 70 miles per hour, and let the revolutions per minute climb under load for a sustained stretch, you get a higher combustion temperature that can help combust or loosen some of that lighter residue naturally. One woman with a 2.5-liter Camry had a slightly rough idle and a cranky throttle response. She did nothing but short grocery runs and work commutes through city traffic. I recommended she take it for a long drive down the interstate at highway speeds once a week. After a couple of those runs, the idle smoothed out and the car felt a lot happier. Now, do not get me wrong, this is not a cure-all, and a highway run will not replace a Walnut blast or a professional cleaning. It helps slow the buildup, but you still need a deep clean once in a while. If you are only ever commuting around town in stop-and-go traffic, those deposits stack up fast because the engine never sees high temperatures long enough to burn them off. This is one of the simplest and cheapest ways to keep your Toyota breathing easier and to save yourself a bigger repair bill later. Now, let's talk about why timing matters when it comes to cleaning carbon on your Toyota engine, and how much you can save in headaches and money down the road. On modern Toyota direct injection motors, carbon buildup on the intake valve never stops forming. That is just the nature of direct injection. The fuel does not wash over the valves, so oil vapors and blow-by soot stick and bake on over time. Because of that, most cleaning methods only remove the carbon that is there right now. They do not change why it forms. Your Toyota will keep making deposits as soon as you start driving again, especially if most of your miles are in town traffic or short trips where the engine does not get a real chance to run hot. This is where most owners miss it. That is why timing makes a big difference in how long a cleaning actually lasts. Waiting until your Toyota starts acting rough, with signs like misfires, hesitation, and poor fuel economy, means you have let the carbon get baked on hard. Aim to clean around 40,000 to 60,000 miles on a regular schedule for direct injection only models, and you are hitting it before the worst of the buildup shows up. For newer dual injection models, you can push this to 80,000 to 100,000 miles. This is a good schedule to follow for Toyota engines prone to carbon. This problem keeps returning if the underlying maintenance habits are not right. On a Toyota direct injection engine, never wait until it is damaged. Instead, stay ahead of the buildup and time your cleaning. You also need to stick to regular maintenance like changing oil and other fluids often. This matters more than people realize, and skipping it is why carbon always comes back. If there is one thing I have learned after turning wrenches on Toyotas for over 15 years, it is that you really cannot beat staying on top of basic maintenance to slow carbon buildup and keep your engine happy. Here is a pro tip. Focus on regular oil changes with quality synthetic oil and use good fuel at the pump. Synthetic oils are formulated to resist breakdown and to carry away soot and contaminants instead of letting them bake onto parts of the engine. This makes a pretty big difference in how much oil vapor and soot get pulled back into the intake where it turns into carbon. Regular oil changes help keep that protective film fresh, so the crankcase ventilation system sends back cleaner vapors, not thick goo that sticks to valves. Toyota recommends 10,000-mile oil change intervals on many newer models, but if you are doing mostly city driving, I recommend cutting that in half to 5,000 miles. The extra oil changes make a measurable difference in carbon formation rates. Do not skip this. Fuel quality matters too. Use top-tier detergent gasoline, an industry standard, to help keep the combustion chamber and injectors cleaner, which means fewer soot particles forming in the first place. Many Toyota owners switch to top-tier fuels after a carbon service and notice their Camry or RAV4 stayed smoother longer because they were not feeding the buildup as fast. Brands like Chevron, Shell, Mobil, and Costco all sell top-tier fuel. It may cost 5 to 10 cents more per gallon, but the long-term engine protection is worth every penny. But regardless of what else you do, I always recommend getting professional help to clean carbon buildup. You can absolutely do it yourself walnut blasting or manual carbon cleaning on your Toyota, and it will save you some cash if you know what you are doing and have some patience. But let me tell you, professional help usually ends up being the smarter call. Equipment and experience matter. Shops that do intake valve cleaning every day have proper media blasting rigs, vacuums, and training so they can blast the gunk off without chunks flying into places they should not. They are also tuned into the risks, like dislodging pieces of carbon that could clog fuel injectors, hurt sensors, or damage components if they are not captured correctly. On the other hand, do-it-yourself is tempting. You buy a walnut blast setup or grab picks and scrapers from the toolbox, pull the intake, and go at it. That can work. I have had Toyota owners come in proud of a job they tackled in the driveway. But it takes time, patience, and skill to keep debris from slipping into the cylinder or leaving carbon chunks behind. Without the right vacuum setup and experience, you can accidentally leave carbon particles where they can cause misfires or even damage sensors. Good shops always take responsibility for their work. If something gets damaged during a professional service, most reputable places will cover it or fix it. When you are doing it yourself and a sensor gets fried or you drop debris into a cylinder, you are footing that bill yourself. Professional walnut blasting typically costs $400 to $800 depending on your engine configuration. A V6 costs more than a 4-cylinder because there are more valves to clean. That might sound expensive, but compare it to a $2,000 catalytic converter replacement from prolonged misfires or a $3,500 engine rebuild from valve damage. So yes, do-it-yourself can save you a few bucks up front, but a pro with the right gear will give you faster, cleaner, and safer results on a direct injection Toyota. When carbon cleaning goes wrong on a direct injection Toyota, it does not end with a rough idle. It ends with damaged parts, blown budgets, and an engine that never quite runs right again. Carbon buildup is real, but it is not something to fear if you understand it and stay ahead of it. Toyota's direct injection engines are incredibly reliable and efficient when maintained properly. The key is knowing that carbon accumulation is part of the deal with these engines, not a defect. Plan for it, budget for it, and use prevention methods to extend the time between cleanings. If you catch it early with walnut blasting at the right mileage intervals, your Toyota will easily run past 200,000 miles without major issues. Ignore it, and you will be dealing with misfires, poor fuel economy, and expensive repairs that could have been prevented. The choice is yours, but now you have the knowledge to make the right decision for your Toyota's long-term health.